Bruce Lee walks onto Camp Pendleton, carrying nothing but a canvas training bag, when a Marine gunnery sergeant looks at him and says, "Marines don't do kung fu. We do what works." What happens in the next 6 seconds doesn't just change one man's mind. It rewrites how the United States Marine Corps teaches hand-to-hand combat for the next 50 years. Camp Pendleton, California, March 1971, Tuesday morning. The sun hasn't decided yet whether to burn through the coastal fog or let it hang like smoke over the training grounds. The air smells like eucalyptus and dust and the particular metallic tang of gun oil that never quite leaves a military base. Everything here is the color of war. Dirt, the color of dried blood. Buildings the color of wet concrete. The ocean a few miles west, but you can't see it through the fog. I just feel it in the salt on your tongue. The hand-to-hand combat training facility sits on the east side of the base, a large concrete structure with a corrugated metal roof that pings when it rains. Inside, the floor is packed dirt, covered with wrestling mats that have seen 10,000 takedowns. The walls are bare concrete, painted the same institutional green as every military building since Korea. High windows let in slanted morning light that catches dust particles floating like ash. The smell is sweat and liniment oil, and the rubber of worn training mats. This is where Marines learn to kill with their hands when their rifles jam or their ammo runs dry. This is where boys become men who can do what needs to be done. 40 Marines fill the space. Most are instructors, men who have earned the right to teach other men how to survive. A few are senior officers observing, clipboards in hand, measuring whether this demonstration is worth the time they're investing. The rest are advanced students, men who have already graduated basic MCMAP and are here to sharpen the edge. All of them are big. The smallest is probably 180 pounds. Most are 200 plus. Men built from push-ups and forced marches and the kind of physical conditioning that breaks civilians who attempt it. They wear standard-issue PT gear, olive drab shirts and black shorts, boots unlaced for mat work. Their arms are thick, their hands are scarred. These are not gym muscles. These are working muscles, functional, dangerous. At the front of the room stands Gunnery Sergeant James Dutton. Everyone calls him Ironside. 46 years old, 6 feet 1 inch, 215 pounds of lean, weathered muscle wrapped tight over a frame that has been shot at, blown up, and put back together more times than anyone keeps track of. His face is all hard angles and sun damage. A scar runs from his left ear to his jaw, a souvenir from Incheon in 1950 when a piece of shrapnel nearly took his head off. His hands are massive, knuckles swollen from decades of hitting things that hit back. His eyes are the color of slate, cold and assessing, the eyes of a man who has killed and will kill again if the mission requires it. Dutton has been a Marine for 22 years, enlisted at 18, fought in Korea, 2 tours, came home with a chest full of medals and nightmares he doesn't talk about, spent the last 15 years teaching hand-to-hand combat to Marines heading to Vietnam. 5,000 men have passed through his training, and most of them came home. The ones who didn't, it wasn't because Dutton failed to teach them how to fight. It was because war doesn't care how well you're trained. But the ones who survived, they send him letters. Thank you letters. You saved my life letters. I used what you taught me letters. That's why Dutton is here. That's why he teaches, because his methods work, because men who follow his instruction come home to their families. Bruce Lee pushes through the metal door. The sound echoes in the concrete space. 40 heads turn. Bruce is 29 years old, 5'7", 135 pounds soaking wet. He's wearing black training pants and a simple gray t-shirt. No shoes. His feet are bare on the mat, toes spread, feeling the surface. He carries a small canvas bag, sets it down near the door, doesn't acknowledge the stares, doesn't smile or wave or try to break the tension, just walks to the center of the mat, stands there, waits. Internal monologue. They see a small man, an actor, a TV celebrity, someone who plays at fighting for cameras and applause. They don't see 20 years of training. They don't see a body conditioned to move faster than thought. They see what they expect to see. And that is why they will learn something today. Dutton crosses his arms. His biceps are bigger than some men's thighs. He doesn't move from his position at the front of the room. His voice carries easily, the voice of a man used to shouting orders over gunfire and explosions. Mr. Lee, we appreciate you coming out. I understand you teach something called Jeet Kune Do. Bruce nods. I teach adaptability. Is Jeet Kune Do is just a name? Right. Dutton's tone makes it clear what he thinks about names. Well, we teach Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, MCMAP. It's what keeps Marines alive in combat, what brings men home to their families. We don't teach for tournaments, we don't teach for demonstrations, we teach for real combat, life and death. Do you understand the difference? I do. Good. Then you understand why we're skeptical about martial arts. We've seen a lot of styles. Karate, judo, taekwondo. Some of it's useful, most of it's not. Flashy techniques that look good in a gym but fall apart when someone's actually trying to kill you. So before we waste 40 Marines' time, I need to know. What you teach, does it work when the bullets stop and the knives come out? Bruce doesn't answer immediately, lets the question sit. Lets Dutton feel like he's in control. Then he says something that makes the room shift. Can I see how you train first? Dutton wasn't expecting that. Most martial artists who come here want to show off, want to prove themselves. This guy wants to observe. Interesting. He nods. Yeah, fine. Corporal Davis, Sergeant Kowalski. Show him. 2 Marines step onto the mat. Both big. Davis is 6 feet, 190 pounds, all shoulders and speed. Kowalski is 6'2", 220, built like a linebacker. They square off. Dutton doesn't explain what they're going to do, just lets them run through the standard close quarters sequence. Elbow strike to the temple, knee to the solar plexus, sprawl defense against takedown, choke from behind, transition to mount, ground and pound. The sequence takes 30 seconds. It's brutal. It's efficient. It's designed to end a fight before the other guy knows the fight has started. When they finish, both Marines are breathing hard, not from exertion, from the adrenaline that comes with simulating violence. Bruce watches every second. His eyes track every movement, every shift of weight, every telegraph, every opening. He doesn't blink, doesn't react, just absorbs. Dutton looks at him. That's what we teach, techniques that work, that have worked, in Korea, in Vietnam, in every shithole combat zone the Corps has sent Marines into for the last 20 years. What do you think? Bruce is quiet for a long moment. Then he says something that makes every Marine in the room tense. It's good, very good, but there's a problem. The room goes cold. You can hear 40 men stop breathing. Dutton's jaw tightens. His voice drops half an octave. What problem? Your training assumes the fight starts when you're ready. You initiate, you attack, you control the tempo. But what happens when the fight starts before you're ready? When you're walking through a door and someone's already swinging? When you're checking your gear and a knife appears? When the fight chooses you instead of you choosing the fight? Silence. Complete silence. Because every man in this room has been there. Every man in this room has felt that moment of pure terror when violence appears without warning, when your training has to kick in faster than thought, or you die. Dutton uncrosses his arms. His hands hang at his sides now. His posture hasn't changed, but something in his energy has. He's listening, really listening. Show me. I need a volunteer, someone big, or someone you trust to be aggressive. Dutton looks at his Marines, points to Sergeant Rodriguez. Rod, you're up. Rodriguez steps forward, 6 feet, 210 pounds, barrel chest, arms like pythons, 3 years as a Marine, 1 tour in Vietnam, infantry, saw combat, killed men, came home different than he left. He's not afraid of Bruce Lee. He's curious, maybe slightly amused. This should be interesting. Bruce looks at Rodriguez. I want you to attack me. Full speed, full commitment. The way you'd attack an enemy combatant who's a threat. Don't hold back. Rodriguez grins. Not cocky, just confident. He's done this before, against men his size, against men bigger. He's never lost. You sure about that? Yes. All right then. Rodriguez settles into his stance, weight balanced, hands up, ready. He's going to close distance fast, going to overwhelm with size and speed, going to use what Dutton taught him, drive through, control the center line, end it quick. Bruce stands completely still, not in a fighting stance, not ready, just standing, weight even, hands relaxed at his sides, shoulders loose, breathing normal. To Rodriguez, this looks wrong, looks like a mistake, looks like someone who doesn't understand what's about to happen. Internal monologue. He sees my stillness as weakness. He sees relaxation as unpreparedness. But tension is the enemy of speed. Tension locks the muscles, slows reaction time, creates hesitation. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is potential. The water in the glass is still until you tip it. Then it moves faster than thought. Rodriguez moves. Fast. He closes the distance in one explosive step. Hands reaching for Bruce's collar, planning to grab, control, take him down. The technique is textbook. The execution is perfect. He's done this 1,000 times. Bruce doesn't dodge, doesn't jump back, doesn't block. He moves forward, into the attack. Half a step, 6 inches. Enough to collapse the distance Rodriguez calculated. Enough to make his hands close on air. Rodriguez's momentum carries him forward. He's overextended, off balance, for exactly 1 heartbeat. 1 heartbeat is all Bruce needs. Bruce's hand moves, open palm, travels maybe 6 inches, strikes Rodriguez in the solar plexus, the same target Dutton's Marines trained to hit. But the strike is different. Not a push, not a slam, a penetration. The energy doesn't stop at the surface. It transfers through, travels deep, finds the diaphragm, the cluster of nerves that control breathing, shuts them down like flipping a switch. Rodriguez's eyes go wide. His mouth opens. Air exits his lungs. All of it, at once. His hands drop from Bruce's collar, go to his stomach. He gasps. Nothing comes in. His diaphragm is locked. His body is fighting itself. He stumbles back 2 steps. His knees buckle. He doesn't fall, just bends forward, hands on his thighs, trying to pull air into lungs that won't cooperate. 6 seconds. That's all it takes. 6 seconds from the moment Rodriguez moved to the moment he's bent double, unable to breathe, unable to fight, unable to do anything except exist in the immediate reality of suffocation. The room is frozen. 40 Marines, 40 men who have seen violence, who have inflicted violence, who understand combat at a bone-deep level. And none of them have seen this, not like this, not this clean, not this fast, not this precise. Dutton hasn't moved. His arms are still uncrossed. His face is neutral, but his eyes have changed. something calculating behind them now, something reassessing. 30 seconds pass. Rodriguez's diaphragm resets. Air comes back, ragged, painful. He straightens slowly, wipes his mouth, looks at Bruce. No anger, no embarrassment. He's a professional. He knows what just happened. He knows it was real. "What the hell was that?" Bruce's voice is calm, patient. "That was what happens when the fight starts before you're ready. Your attack was good, fast, committed. Exactly what Gunnery Sergeant Dutton taught you. In most situations, it would work. But you assumed I would react the way your training says people react. You assumed I would try to stop you. Aim, block you. Move away from you. I didn't. I moved toward you. Your body wasn't ready for that. Your technique assumed a response that didn't come." Dutton steps forward. His boots make no sound on the mat. "You didn't block, didn't counter. You moved into his attack." "Yes. Why?" "Because blocking gives you 1 second to react. Moving into the attack gives you the initiative. You become the aggressor while the other person is still completing their attack. They can't adjust mid-movement. Their weight is already committed. Their momentum is locked in. You exploit that momentum instead of fighting against it." Dutton looks at Rodriguez. Rodriguez nods. He felt it. Felt exactly what Bruce described. The moment he lunged, he was committed. His body was moving in one direction. And in that commitment, he was vulnerable. Not because he was weak or slow or poorly trained. Because he was human. Because human bodies can only move in one direction at a time. Because momentum is a weapon that cuts both ways. "How much force did you use?" Dutton asks. "Very little." "You could have hit harder?" "Much harder. But you didn't need to." "No, the target doesn't require force. It requires accuracy. You don't need a sledgehammer to flip a light switch. You just need to know where the switch is." Internal monologue. He understands. I can see it in his eyes. He's not offended. He's not defensive. He's processing. 22 years of combat experience. 15 years of teaching men to kill efficiently. And I just showed him something his entire curriculum didn't account for. Not because his training is wrong. Because his training assumed a certain type of engagement. And I just showed him a different type. One he didn't know existed. Los Angeles, 1964. The Long Beach Internationals. Bruce is 23, still unknown, still building his reputation. He's demonstrating 1-inch punch for a crowd of skeptical martial artists. A karate black belt volunteers. Big guy, 6'2", 220, confident. He holds a pad against his chest, braces himself. Bruce's fist touches the pad. The black belt smiles, thinks he knows what's coming. Bruce releases. The black belt flies backward, 6 feet, lands on his back, stunned. The crowd erupts. After, the black belt finds Bruce. "How did you do that? I've trained for 10 years. I've never seen power like that from such a short distance." Bruce tells him what he'll tell hundreds of people over the years. And distance doesn't create power. Body mechanics create power. You've been taught to generate force with wind-up, with space, with leverage. I generate force with alignment, with timing, with understanding how energy transfers through structure. Your 10 years taught you one way. I'm showing you another. The black belt trains with Bruce for 2 years, unlearns everything, rebuilds from scratch. Later, he tells people Bruce Lee didn't teach him new techniques. He taught him a new way of seeing. Dutton is quiet for a long time. The room waits, 40 Marines holding their breath, waiting to see what their instructor does with this information, waiting to see if their worldview just changed, or if Dutton is going to dismiss it as a fluke. Finally, Dutton speaks. "Show me again. Different attacker, different approach." Bruce nods, or another Marine volunteers. Bigger this time. 6'3", 230. Dutton briefs him quietly. Attack however you want. Full speed. Don't hold back. Show Mr. Lee what you're capable of. The Marine nods, studies Bruce for a moment, decides on a different approach. A low tackle, driving through the legs, taking Bruce off his feet entirely. He explodes forward, fast, powerful, a freight train wrapped in olive drab. Bruce moves, not back, not sideways, down. His center of gravity drops. His body flows under the tackle like water under a bridge. The Marine's arms close around empty space. His momentum carries him forward. Bruce's hand finds the back of his neck. 2 fingers, specific pressure points. The Marine's legs go weak, not unconscious, not injured, just disconnected, like someone cut the wires. He catches himself on his hands, stays on his knees for 3 seconds, then stands, shakes his head, looks at Bruce with something close to awe. Pressure points, Dutton says. Not a question, a statement. Yes, 3 nerves, specific angle, less than a pound of pressure. The nervous system shuts down voluntary because it interprets the stimulus as a survival threat. I didn't force anything. I asked his body to stop. It agreed. Dutton looks at his Marines. They're all leaning forward now, watching, listening. The posture of men who recognize something valuable when they see it. Men who understand that what they just witnessed could save their lives. He turns back to Bruce. How long would it take to teach this? Bruce considers. The techniques, a few days. The thinking behind them, longer, much longer. Because it's not just about what you do with your hands. It's about how you see the fight before it starts, how you read what's coming, how you respond to chaos instead of trying to impose order on it. We're good at imposing order, Dutton says. You're good at creating tactical superiority. That's different. In real combat, tactical superiority is a luxury. The men who survive aren't always the strongest or the fastest or the best trained. They're the ones who adapt fastest to what's actually happening instead of what they planned for. That's not a physical skill. That's a mental skill, and it's what I teach. Dutton is silent for another long moment. Then he does something that surprises everyone in the room. He extends his hand to Bruce. Not a military handshake. A real handshake. The kind you give someone you respect. Mr. Lee, I owe you an apology. When you walked in here this morning, I thought this was a courtesy, something we'd sit through politely and forget about by lunch. I was wrong. What you just showed us isn't kung fu. It's not any style. It's something bigger. It's how to stay alive when everything goes wrong. That's what we teach here. That's what keeps Marines breathing. And you just showed us we've been missing something. Bruce takes his hand, shakes it firmly. You weren't missing something, Gunnery Sergeant. You built something that works. What I showed you is an addition, not a replacement. Your Marines are already dangerous. What I can show them is how to be dangerous before the other guy knows danger has arrived. They train for 6 hours. Bruce doesn't teach techniques first. He teaches principles, the foundation. The way Dutton taught tactics and strategy before teaching how to field strip a rifle. Bruce explains how the body telegraphs intention before movement, how the shoulders shift before the punch, how the hips rotate before the kick, how the eyes focus on target before the strike, how a trained observer can see the decision before it becomes action. And if you can see the decision, you don't need to be faster than the action. You just need to be faster than the thought that creates the action. The Marines drill it, pair up, attack each other at half speed, then 3/4 speed, then full speed. Feel what Bruce is describing. Feel the gap between deciding to move and actually moving. Feel how that gap, that fraction of a second, is the space where everything changes. The space where life and death balance on a razor's edge. Dutton pulls Bruce aside during a water break. The fog has burned off outside. Through the high windows, you can see the hills brown and dry under California sun. Mr. Lee, I've been teaching hand-to-hand combat for 15 years. Learned from the best instructors the Corps had. Trained under men who fought in World War II, Korea, every conflict since. But nobody ever taught me to see the fight this way. They taught me to react faster, to hit harder, to be more aggressive. You're teaching something different. You're teaching attention. That's what this is. Paying attention at a level most people don't even know exists. Bruce nods. Attention is the real weapon, Gunnery Sergeant. Everything else is just delivery. A rifle is useless if you don't see the target. A punch is useless if you don't see the opening. Your Marines already know how to fight. What I'm showing them is how to see. Once you see clearly, fighting becomes easier, because you're not fighting the action. You're fighting the intention behind the action. And intention is always slower than trained response. That's what I'm going to integrate, Dutton says, not as a separate module, as the foundation, the way we think about engagement before we even start teaching techniques. Over the next 3 months, Bruce returns to Camp Pendleton 4 more times. Each time, he brings something different. First, the principles, then the applications, then the edge cases, the chaos scenarios, the moments when everything falls apart, and the only thing that saves you is instinct built from understanding. Dutton takes notes, pages and pages of notes, not techniques, philosophy, new ways of thinking about combat that his previous training never covered. He integrates what Bruce taught into the Marine Corps martial arts program. Not publicly, not with announcements or press releases. The military doesn't work that way. But the change is there, in how the instructors teach, in how the Marines move, in how they pay attention, in how they respond to chaos instead of trying to control it. Years later, Marines coming back from combat zones will tell stories. Stories about moments when their training saved them. Moments when they saw the attack before it arrived. Moments when they moved before they thought about moving. Moments when instinct and training fused into something that kept them breathing. And when they describe what happened, they describe what Bruce Lee taught Dutton on a Tuesday morning in March 1971. They just don't know that's where it came from. They think it's always been part of MCMAP, and in a way, it has. Because once Dutton learned it, it became part of the DNA, part of the foundation, part of what it means to be a Marine who knows how to fight. In 1973, when Bruce dies, Dutton reads about it in the morning edition of Stars and Stripes. He's at Camp Pendleton, running the same training facility where Bruce demonstrated 6 years earlier. He doesn't go to the funeral. He's training a new cycle of Marines, men heading to Vietnam, men who need what he's teaching more than he needs closure. But that evening, alone in his office, he sits for a long time, thinking about a Tuesday morning, then about a small man in a gray t-shirt who walked onto a military base and showed 40 Marines that they didn't know as much as they thought they knew. He pulls out his training manual, the one he's been building for 15 years, opens it to the first page, the page where he wrote the core philosophy, the foundation everything else builds from. The first line reads, "Combat doesn't begin when you decide to fight. Combat begins when you see the fight coming." He learned that from Bruce Lee, in 6 seconds on a Tuesday morning, in a room where men learn to survive. A man who weighed 135 pounds walked in and taught them something none of their weapons could match: how to pay attention. In 1989, Gunnery Sergeant James Michael Dutton retires from the Marine Corps. 38 years of service. Ye more Marines trained than he can count, more lives saved than he'll ever know. At his retirement ceremony, a young Marine approaches him, fresh from a tour in Panama. Kid can't be more than 22. He shakes Dutton's hand, says, "Gunny, I wanted to thank you. 6 months ago, I was clearing a building. Guy came out of nowhere. I saw his shoulder move before his hand moved. Saw the knife before he started the swing. I was already moving when the blade got to where I'd been. Your training saved my life. Whatever you taught us about seeing the fight before it starts, that's what kept me breathing." Dutton shakes his hand. Doesn't tell the kid where that training came from. Doesn't mention Bruce Lee. Doesn't take credit that isn't his. Just says, "I'm glad you made it home, son. That's all that matters." But later, driving home, he thinks about Bruce, about a man who died too young, about lessons that outlive the teacher, about how 6 seconds can change not just one person, but thousands, tens of thousands, generations of Marines who will never know the small man's name, but will live because of what he taught. That's legacy, not monuments or movies or fame. Legacy is the breath in a young Marine's lungs, the split second of warning that makes the difference, the attention paid when everything else is chaos. So here's the question. You've been training your whole life, building expertise, perfecting your craft, and you believe you're prepared for anything. But what if the most important moment of your life happens not when you're ready, but when you're checking your gear? Not when you're expecting it, but when you're walking through a door? What if everything you've prepared for assumes you get to choose when the fight starts? Because that's not how life works. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. The fight begins before you're set, before you're prepared, before you've taken your stance. And in that moment, all your training is useless unless you've learned one thing Bruce Lee taught 40 Marines on a Tuesday morning. Pay attention. See what's coming before it arrives. Because the fastest weapon isn't the sharpest blade or the strongest fist. It's the mind that sees clearly. Who are you when life doesn't wait for you to be ready? If this story made you think differently about preparation versus awareness, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about the moments that define mastery. And drop in the comments. What's the moment in your life when everything started before you were ready for it?